There was a huge public execution which took place in Poland in July 1946 as a brutal and barbaric Nazi official, who was known as the Butcher of Posen, was led towards the gallows. Arthur Greiser was responsible for the slaughter and deaths of thousands, and he was brought to justice at the end of the Second World War, and was flanked by two guards who made sure on the gallows that the executioner performed his job to bring his life to an end. He was one of many SS officials who became known for their terrible crimes, but what happened with his public execution in front of thousands? To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Arthur Greiser was seen as someone by Adolf Hitler and the head of the SS Heinrich Himmler who could be trusted in positions of power. He was given different roles inside of Poland, and he was a close friend of Martin Bormann, Hitler's personal private secretary, and also Rudolf Hess, the deputy Führer. Greiser was very well linked to the Nazi hierarchy, and inside the city of Danzig he was made the deputy president. He could do what he wanted, and specifically he tried to annoy and put down the Polish people as much as he could. He was later made the chief of the civil administration for Posen, and a regional leader known as a Gauleiter. Despite the many roles inside the SS leadership, Greiser was a brute in the region, and he oversaw many horrific deportations of people to concentration and extermination centres. It was said of him that he was a powerfully built figure, he was a tall man, and you could see his arrogance, his conceit. He was so vain, so full of himself, as if there was nothing above him, a god almost. Everybody tried to get out of his way, people had to bow to him, salute him, and the Polish he treated with great contempt. For him they were slaves, good for nothing but work. He believed that the Nazis were the master race, and would stop at nothing to ensure this. He ordered 1,558 civilians to be removed from mental hospitals in his region, where they were then gassed inside of a concentration camp. He also had many church officials and priests shot dead and executed, and even brought gas fans to different Polish towns and cities. Civilians were also hanged from lampposts, and Greiser imposed a reign of terror. As the Second World War continued, Arthur Greiser did not deter from his devotion to the Nazi cause, and he was seen as a terroriser even until the end of the conflict. In January 1945 he ordered an evacuation of Posen, as the Red Army were advancing throughout the region. He reported to Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, aboard his train, but his former friend Martin Bormann would stab him in the back. Bormann ordered for Posen to be held, but Greiser in this looked like a deserter, and he was deemed a traitor by Adolf Hitler. It was not a good look for him, but as the American army approached into Austria, they came across Greiser, who was in hiding. He knew that he would be dealt with as a war criminal, and because of this, Greiser contemplated consuming cyanide. However, he was then handed over by the Americans to the Polish in the nation of most of his crimes. He tried to defend himself at trial, saying he was only following orders, but this was not accepted, and he was shown to have been one of the most ruthless Nazi leaders who condemned thousands of people in the most barbaric way. He was also charged with torture, persecution, destruction of Polish culture, looting, taking children against their will, and slaughter inside the ghetto system. It was no surprise that he was sentenced to death. In July 1946, on a summer's morning inside the city of Poznan, Arthur Greiser was brought out to his execution in front of a crowd of around 15,000 people. These witnesses were stood in the grounds of the citadel, which was a fortress, and it had been heavily damaged during the war. But before 7 a.m, a car in which a condemned Greiser was sat in drove through the crowd, and when the car stopped, Arthur Greiser got out. He was blindfolded and dressed smartly in a suit. Stood by him were two guards who guided him up the steps of the specially built gallows for his date with the hangman. Arthur Greiser, whilst he was stood on the gallows, had his hands tied behind his back, and he stood there without any emotion at all. He quietly mumbled some prayers before the executioner approached him. He accepted his death, and did not ask for forgiveness, and he did not act defiantly, just stood there rather motionless. The executioner was dressed in all black, and he then secured the noose around Greiser's neck, whilst he was stood over the trapdoor. The executioner then pushed the lever, operating the trapdoor, and Arthur Greiser, the Beast of Posen, was sent crashing through the gallows. Minutes later he was then confirmed dead, and to signal the disgrace of the man he had just hanged, the executioner threw away publicly the white gloves he had worn to hang him. Arthur Greiser was a man who is not the most well-known Nazi today when compared to others such as Bormann or Himmler, but he was a man who brought a huge amount of terror and evil to the lands in which he oversaw. For all of his crimes he was publicly executed in front of a crowd of thousands of people. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.